ability to lead a group of people or an organization. Any more persons? What is leadership? From Etim, leadership is the act of motivating a group of people to have a common goal. Okay, let's make some progress. Once you hold on to the thought, what is leadership? Sometimes to find out what something is, you have to look at what it is not. Okay? So it's important to look at, let's look at a few things that leadership is not. Leadership is not having power or authority. Leadership is not charisma. Leadership is not having talents and skills. It is beyond having talents and skills. Leadership is not being the oga at the top. Most times when we hear the word leadership, what comes to our mind is top management. It's the person who sits behind the chair. It's the big boss, the person who gives instructions. And sometimes the one who we expect knows all the answers. So leadership is not being the oga at the top. Leadership is not being rich and famous. Also, leadership is more than influence. Let's make some progress. Leadership is not a title, a power, or authority. Leadership is not title, power, or authority. Leadership is not charisma. You can have charisma and still not be leading. Leadership is not charisma. I know most times we hear we need charismatic leaders. The guy lacks charisma. The leader lacks charisma. Now, charisma is good. Charisma is important. It has its place. It has its usefulness. But charisma is different from leadership. Leadership is not talent. Talent is good, but that's not leadership. Now, leadership is more than influence. You can have influence and still not be leading. Leadership is more than influence. Okay? Now, leadership is not exclusive to a few persons. Leadership is not meant for a few people. It's not an exclusive item or commodity for a few persons. All right? So we're making progress. What is leadership? So let's look at the difference between authority and leadership, whilst we're still interrogating what leadership is. Okay? Let's look at the difference between authority and leadership. Okay, what do we think? Do you think authority is the same as leadership? Let me get your answers in the chat box. Is authority the same as leadership? No? 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 Thank you very much. Quindo, no, 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 no. Thank you. Thank you so much for your answers. Thank you for your responses. Much appreciated. Okay. Okay. Let's look at the difference between authority. The difference between authority and leadership. The difference between authority and leadership. Authority is a position. People hold it. It's a position that people hold. Authority can be formal and informal. Formal authority has to do with authority that is conveyed formally, either through a letter. There is a formal communication, a manager is appointed in an office, an MD or a CEO is appointed over a company or a conglomerate. Yeah, that's formal authority. But there is formal authority and there is informal authority. Informal authority, it's not communicated through any formal means. Okay, it's, for example, the NSAS protest and movement that has been on for the last couple of weeks now. The youths have gained some level of informal authority by coming together, and people are expecting them to advance a particular cause. Okay, nobody communicated with them formally to say, now you have this formal authority to execute this. And even some persons have asked to say, okay, who are the leaders? And people are like, well, from them, from the midst of them, leaders would emerge. I like to use the word authority figures will emerge. And some individuals have emerged from the midst of the youths who are giving some level of guidance, okay, direction and order to the movement. And these are authority figures, okay? And what they have is not formal authority. What they have is informal authority. I'll also give another example of informal authority. I have 3 children, okay? The first is 17. The second is going to be 14 at the end of this month. And then also the last is, she's going to be 11 in January, okay? Now, my first son, the firstborn, he has informal authority as the first. He's the first to arrive. He's older than the other 2. And so because of his age and the fact that he's the first to arrive, there are certain things that he knows that the others don't know by reason of age. So in terms of authority, he has the highest authority because I expect him to give direction. If daddy and mommy, they're not around, to set order, okay, I also expect him to bring protection. And those are actually the 3 goals of authority in any environment. You provide protection, you give order, and also you give direction. But he has informal authority. And often I will say to him, his name is Daniel. His English name is Daniel. Now listen, you have authority as a firstborn. But how you use your authority is important. There is a difference between authority and leadership. You can have authority and not be leading. And that we see all the time in our country, in our cities, in our environments. Some people think that once you have authority, it says, I'm the leader. Some people equate authority with leadership. No, you can have authority and not be offering leadership. And part of why we're talking about an introduction to the practice of leadership, and why we talk about at our center redefining leadership, is because we live in a space, we live in a country where there's so much focus on authority. Excuse me. We live in a space and in a climb where authority is equated with leadership. Somebody thinks that once he's gotten authority, then that automatically makes him, once he's gotten a position, all right, that automatically makes him a good leader. That automatically means that he is leading well. No. You can have authority and still not be leading well. And some persons have authority, and then of course you get to use it to lead well. Now, you need to take note of this. Power, title, authority, influence. These are tools. These are tools of leadership. What you do with them determines where your leadership begins from. What you do with them will determine the value of your leadership. On their own, there are tools. There are tools of leadership. I hope you guys are listening to me. What you do with them determines whether you will lead well. So for example, an individual who wants to go to farm, he's got certain tools. He's got the cutlass. He's got the hoe. He's got the rake. These are tools. Whether farming or tilling or progress will take place depends on whether he chooses to do the work. Having those tools on their own does not equate to doing the work. That is why there is the work of leadership. I hope you guys are with me. So authority is a position, people hold it. But leadership is an activity, people do it. So whenever we're talking about leadership, all right, we are always talking about taking action, doing something. So a simple definition of leadership is an activity. Leadership is the activity of mobilizing people, all right, to solve problems. Leadership also can be said to be the activity of mobilizing individuals to solve problems for the good of the community. Leadership is an activity. Leadership is always about doing something. Leadership is taking action. Leadership is never about the individual. No, authority is a position, people hold it. So when an individual occupies a position, he's an authority figure. That does not mean he's leading. That does not mean he's offering leadership. You can be an authority figure, you can occupy a position of authority and not be offering any leadership. They are two different things. What you do with your position, what you do with your title, what you do with your influence, what you do, okay, with your authority, that is where leadership begins from. And we need to understand that. We need to be able to differentiate that. I was in a secondary school some time ago, and then we went there to talk about the practice of leadership. And interestingly, one of the secondary schools in my city, they just elected their members of their student representative council, and they call him president. So I said, yes, Mr. President, you know, and then I invited him and members of his management team, executive team, and I put them to one side. And I said, listen, you are the president. You have been authorized by majority of the students to lead the Student Representative Council for the next 1 year. What you have is authority. I know that they are calling you the leader, but I want to focus on the action of doing. The individual is separate. I said, what you have is authority. But what you do with that authority to solve problems, to mobilize people for the next 1 year, that is what will represent your leadership. So by way of differentiation, okay, authority, another way to look at authority is A, authorizing B with power in exchange for service. I'll say that again. Authority, for those of you who are writing, authority is A, authorizing B with power in exchange for service. Authority is A, authorizing B with power in exchange for service. And that definition holds true whether it is formal or informal authority. That definition holds true. So, for example, in 2015, majority of Nigerians were said to have authorized Mr. President, PMB, to leave the nation, to occupy the highest position in the nation. In 2019, majority were said to have reauthorized him. But the essence of authorizing him was to render his service. Is to render his service. Okay? Informal authority also, I'm sure some of you ladies, you went to the hairdresser a few days ago, or you guys, you went to the barbers. What do you think happened when you got there? When you got there, you informally authorized your barber or your hairdresser to fix your hair. By sitting down, you authorized him to attend to you. When you have a caregiver at home, that is granting informal authority. You've granted informal authority to the caregiver, for example, to take care of your baby. So in every case, whether formal or informal, authority is A, authorizing B with power in exchange for service. Okay, let's make some progress. Let's go forward. Let's make some progress. I want to talk about certain assumptions that we have about leadership. At our leadership center, we have 10 assumptions. What is an assumption? An assumption is a way of looking at something. It's something you hold to be true, even though it is not scientifically proven. It's an assumption. It's an assumption. And I'm going to run through 10 of them very quickly. But whilst before I go on, I just want to pause and ask you guys, are you guys still tracking with me? Are you still with me?
Yes,
Okay.
we are.
Okay, that's good. Okay. All right. So let's
Yes,
make.
we are.
Okay. Thank
Of
you
course,
for
I'm
that.
here. I'm here.
Okay. Okay. That's good. Oh, good, 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 good. I'm glad that you're all following me. I want to run through 10. I want to run through 10 assumptions very quickly. Okay. I want to run through 10 assumptions very quickly, and then possibly we'll see a video. The number one assumption we have about leadership is that leadership is an activity, it's a behavior, it's not a position. And you need to take note of that. Leadership is not a person. Leadership is an activity, it's a behavior, it's not a position. That's a number one assumption. Leadership is an activity. And I need you to remember that. It is not a position. I said authority is a position,
Okay.
people hold it. Leadership is an activity, people do it. Number two, the practice of leadership is independent of position. You don't need to have authority or a position to practice leadership. We've always had the erroneous belief that without authority, you can't practice leadership. If you disagree with me, please put it in the chat. And I'd like you to be able to disagree. Listen, I'm suggesting thoughts to you, okay? This is adult learning, and I want us to be able to learn together. Be free to disagree with any concept or any thought. Part of what we are doing is to redefine leadership. And the second assumption is you don't need to have a position to exercise leadership. I believe most of you have heard of Martin Luther King before. What position did he occupy in government before he mobilized the people for racial equality in the US in the 60s? The only formal authority that he had, was over a not-for-profit organization. And that is the Southern Leaders, that's the Southern Leadership Baptist Conference, something like that. But he was able to build informal authority. He was able to build it, So you don't need position or title to exercise leadership. The people who decided to lead the NSAS movement, what authority or position did they have? But they decided to take action. Some of you have heard about Mother Teresa before. What position did she have before she decided to exercise leadership? I believe some of you also have heard about Malala Yousafzai, the Pakistani young lady who decided to champion education for girls, in Afghanistan. Sorry, in Afghanistan, not Pakistan, in Afghanistan. What authority, what position did she have? She was not the Minister of Education. She was not even the head girl in her school, but she just believed that somebody needed to do something. So you don't need a position to exercise leadership. Okay, number three, leadership is not restricted to a few persons. Leadership is not restricted to a few persons. Some of you must have noticed that in the course of my discourse, I'm always mentioning and focusing and talking about leadership. I'm quite silent. I seldom use the word leader, okay? Because I want to shift our focus and our emphasis from the person to the action. The person occupies the position, but what we need to see is less of focus on position, less of focus on title, and more focus on the actions that the individual takes as indoors. And now, why is that important, for example? Why is that important? Why is that important? Because in this third assumption, when we talk about leadership is not restricted to a few persons, the concept of the leader and followers, the leader and followers, the leader and followers, it is a concept that I want us to redefine. And part of what we are attempting to do is to redefine it, okay? Because in a whole lot of sense, is a bankrupt concept. Because that concept emphasizes that there is one person called the leader who is there to supply all the answers, who is there to provide all the resources, who everybody should fold their arms and look up to. So even when he is confused and he doesn't understand what should be done, he is not able to engage the people. So we want to focus less on the individuals and focus on the actions of individuals. And by that, we want to democratize and liberalize the concept of leadership. Leadership is not restricted to a few persons. Everybody can practice leadership. Everybody can exercise leadership. Everybody can lead. And some of you might say, okay, so you mean everybody can become a leader? Everybody can lead? Yes. And where do you start from? You start by leading yourself. You start by leading yourself. You start by providing leadership to yourself. Because a man that cannot lead himself, that cannot provide leadership for himself, is somebody who is without direction, is somebody who is without control. And also, the practice of leadership, when you are practicing leadership, okay, you begin by exercising leadership without having any followers. Because again, and I want to redefine that concept, your leadership is not described. Leadership is not described by followership. No. Leadership is described by the actions you take. So an individual can lead, begin to lead by taking actions, first and foremost, leading yourself, bringing yourself under control, bringing the members of your body under control. That's leadership. Learning respect, learning courtesy, learning decency, learning to stand in line and wait for your turn, learning courtesy in dealing with other people, learning maturity, learning discipline. That's leadership. You are first and foremost leading yourself. You are bringing yourself under order and control. You don't necessarily have any followership. No, because leadership is not defined by followership. I know I'm throwing some controversial thoughts there, but I'm going to pause in a moment and I'll get questions from you all. Note, leadership creates leadership, not followership. Note that. We can talk about it. The goal of leadership is to inspire and to promote more leadership, not necessarily followership. But there is an aspect of leadership that deals with mobilizing people. But leadership begins with you. Change begins with you. Okay? All right. I need to run. Let me not get too excited. Let me run. Number 4. Okay. Number 4. Leadership is the civic duty of every citizen. Yeah, that is important. It is also connected. Number 3, everybody can practice leadership. So in Nigeria, everybody can practice leadership. It is not meant for a few persons in government. It is not meant for a few persons occupying position. Leadership is the civic duty of every individual. The opportunities for the practice of leadership comes to everyone daily. You see, the opportunities for the practice of leadership comes to us. The question is whether we see them, recognize them, and whether we will take them. But do they come? Yes, they come. It is not meant for a few persons. It's not only for those who are in positions. The opportunity comes. I dare say that the opportunity to practice or exercise leadership came to some of us today. But the question is, did we take them? Did we seize them? Did we exercise them? Or in fact, some of us did not even recognize that this was a leadership opportunity and we needed to take advantage of them. Okay, number 6, leadership can be learned and taught, and I'm very passionate about this because one of the things I do is to teach leadership. Okay, leadership can be learned, leadership can be taught, and you can see that from this assumption, what I'm suggesting to you, that the idea that leaders are born is bankrupt. The concept that leaders are born is bankrupt. There is nothing like that. Leadership is a skill that can be learned, it can be taught, it can be learned. Let's move on. Leadership is for our common good. Let's make progress. Change begins with the citizens and not the government. That is also another assumption. Number 9, leadership begins with you and must engage others. It begins with you, okay? But because of the work that needs to be done. Now, listen, folks, we have too many problems for us to relegate leadership to just a few persons. And we must change that. There are too many problems. Don't we have enough problems? We need everybody involved in solving the problems in our country. So we cannot reserve leadership for just a few people. No, not everybody can occupy an authority position. That's true. In a home, for example, you can't have 2 heads. Okay, the father is the authority figure, but everybody needs to exercise leadership. In a country, you can't have 2 presidents at the same time, but everybody needs to exercise leadership. And 10, leadership must be connected to problem solving. And that is something we need to promote amongst our youths, promote in our various spheres, okay? Leadership must be connected to problem solving. In fact, you cannot detach leadership from authority figures thinking about how to solve problems for the common good of the society. All right? So before I move on to dealing with a few other things, let me pause and check your pulse and be sure that you are all still in the wagon and you have not jumped off saying, what is this man talking about? All right? I need to be sure that you are still in the wagon. So let me get responses. Let's pause for the next 2-3 minutes and talk to me. All right? Let me have some questions. Let me have some questions. Let me have some thoughts, some disagreements if you do, or let me know that you are still with me. So I'm going to pause for the next 2-3 minutes and let me hear from you folks. All right? Are we together so far? You're in the wagon, drive on. Oh no, I've parked. I've parked the vehicle. I need to check my passengers because I am feeling I'm getting a sense that you guys are okay. Please, number 7 and number 8. Number 7 and number 8, okay. Number 7 and number 8. You are on, okay. I am still pausing. I need to hear from you guys. So what are your... Number 8 is change begins with the citizens and not the government. That's number 8. Number 8 as assumption of leadership. Number 7, leadership is for our common good. We hear the statement constantly that everything rises and falls on leadership. Everything rises and falls on leadership, okay? I hope you know that that statement does not refer to a few persons. No, that statement actually refers to the concept of leadership. If you exercise leadership and I exercise leadership, then we're going to have a healthier society. If everybody does their path, then we will have a healthy society. We shouldn't arrogate leadership to just a few persons. Okay? All right. So I'm still packed and I have 15 minutes to get to the end of my journey. We're dealing with the introduction. So okay, somebody says, can you compare leadership and authority as it concerns Nigerian politics? Yeah, I mean, part of why we're talking about leadership is that there's too much focus on authority in our politics. There's too much focus on power, too much focus on authority, very little emphasis on leadership. Why would somebody kill? Why would somebody die because you want to occupy the position of a member of the Federal House of Representatives? It's absurd. But the reason for that is because we place too much focus on authority. He wants to be in that position because of the privileges that comes with that position. But nobody is talking about when you have the position, what problems are you ready to solve? What kind of progress are you willing to bring? What do you want to do with the privileges, with the power, with the authority? We don't talk about that. Somebody wants to be the head boy. He wants to be the chairman of the estate. I mean, people, we fight for too much focus. We fight for authority. We fight for position. But the real thing, the real work, okay? I mean, I hope in our next session we'll be able to talk about the work of leadership. The real work of leadership. We don't talk about it. And also the skills that are required to carry out the work. We don't focus on it. Talking about the competencies of leadership. That should be our focus. And that is why we are keen on teaching leadership. We want to teach the competence of learning to diagnose effectively, the competence of building self-management, the competence of learning to mobilize others, the competence of learning to inspire a collective purpose. We don't talk about that. So these are... Jackson says, is leadership born or acquired? Well, I just answered that. I said the concept of leaders are born. The concept of leaders are born is a bankrupt concept. We need to depart from it. Those were the concepts of leadership 20 years ago. What an individual is born with, okay? What now? You can have certain characteristics. You can have certain personal traits. But that it doesn't mean anything. It doesn't mean you will lead well. Hello? I'll give you an example. You can be, I mean, Hitler was a very charismatic person. Personal characteristics, talents, skills, eloquence, all that, those things that you say an individual is born with. What it gives you is authority. For example, charisma. Let me give an example of charisma. I think I want to be able to explain this here. There's no point. I don't believe in ramming down too much information without also. Let's use the next 12 minutes to do a Q&A. Okay? Now, let's look at charisma, for example. What is charisma? Charisma simply means that you are saying to the people, I have something to offer, or I have a way of saying something, listen to me. So Martin Luther King was a very charismatic person. Mandela was a very charismatic person. Hitler was a very charismatic person. So what that gives you is authority. It means that people grant you audience. People want to listen to you. People want to hear you. It means you have some influence. When you begin to talk, people will come in and they will listen to say, oh my God, he's very persuasive. But the issue is what you do with that charisma. That is where leadership begins from. And you can use that tool. You can use it to serve people, and you can either also use it to deceive people. So question, let me ask you all. Would you say that Adolf Hitler exercised leadership? Yes or no? Question, let me get your answers. Did Adolf Hitler exercise leadership? Did he practice leadership? Answers, please. Answers. Thank you, Queen. Thank you, Dorothy. Thank you, Amaka. I'm getting no's. Now, I mean, we don't have time, but I will say this to you, that the reason why you wouldn't say Adolf Hitler practiced leadership, because I just defined leadership. Leadership is the activity of mobilizing people for the good of the community. And when you look at his actions, you will see that they were selfish, they were self-serving, okay? Yes, he had charisma, but how did he use it? He had authority, but how did he use the authority? Did he use the authority to mobilize the people towards the collective good? No. Rather, he used the authority onto destruction. And that's not leadership. So what you are born with is authority. I'll give another example. Okay, what are the sources of authority? Power is a source of authority. For example, if you have a pretty powerful boy, the biggest boy, okay, the biggest boy in class, for maybe when you were in primary school, so, we had this big boy. So because of his age and size, he commanded some influence and some authority because of his size. So power is a source of authority. Talent and skills is a source of authority. Some of us have been in classes where the smallest boy was the most intelligent boy. And so because of that, he exercised some informal authority. So everybody gathered around him. He would teach them, do extramural classes and all that. You know, wealth is a form of authority. So when a wealthy, for where you are right now, if Dangote walks into your house or walks into that room, why? You will give him some audience. Why? Because this is Aliko Dangote, or if Bill Gates. Why? Because he is a wealthy person. So that is a source of authority. Charisma is also a source of authority. There are various sources of authority. Skills and talent is a source of authority. But you see, what you now do with that authority, that is where leadership starts from. You can have authority and not lead. You can be wealthy and be the most confused person. You can be the wealthiest man in the village and not be offering any leadership. Am I making sense? Okay? If I'm making sense to somebody, just let me know. Type no or yes, no or yes, no or yes. Just go ahead. Let me hear from you. Talk to me, talk to me, talk to me. Am I making sense? So let's use the remaining couple of minutes. Yes, if I'm making sense, let's use the remaining 7 minutes to let's have some back and forth and asking questions and all that. You know, it's I was going to play yeah, so let's use the okay. So let me so talking about leadership, okay? So talking about leadership, you must always understand that leadership is about doing. Leadership is not a noun, it's a verb. It's not a noun, it's a verb. It's about doing. It's always about taking action. Okay, so let's do more questions. Let's have more questions as we wrap up. Somebody, okay. If somebody wants to ask, you can unmute and go ahead and ask your question. Let me hear you. Let me hear somebody speak. You can unmute and go ahead and ask your question. If you want to ask your question, you can unmute and then go ahead and ask your question.
Hello?
Yeah, I can hear you. Yeah.
So thank you very much. My name is Vena.
Right. Okay.
Thank you for everything you've said. I think it's absolutely fantastic, and God bless you for the knowledge that you are imparting right now. I just wanted to ask you, I think I logged in just halfway through your sort of your speech or your lecture, if you allow me or permit me to call it that. How can somebody discover their personal leadership? Because I heard you talk about leadership starting from oneself.
Yeah.
So, but how does somebody discover it in the first place? If you could shed some light on that, thank you.
Okay, I will. Okay, let me quickly shed some light regarding that. Thank you so much, Rena, for your question. Now, you said, how can someone? Yeah, one of the assumptions that I talked about is that leadership begins with you and then it affects others. Now, you've asked, how do you discover your, and then people, oftentimes where that comes from is that, okay, people talk about different styles of leadership, okay? Your personal leadership style, whether the authoritarian or the flexible or the laissez-faire and all that, you know. And oftentimes there are, and of course you know that there are so many authorities and different books, and some have even lost their relevance, several literatures and books on leadership, okay? Now, what I would advise is, first off, you need to, leadership is a skill that you can learn. Let it begin from your own personal leadership, where by reason of your actions, you are able to provide leadership to yourself, first and foremost. One of the capacities of leadership that we'll teach at the Abuja Civic Leadership Center is the fact that, and every individual, for you to lead well, you have to learn how to manage self. It is so important that, in fact, that concept of manage self is something that for another 1 week we can be looking at it, because it's a broad subhead. In other words, you have to learn to bring your strengths, your weaknesses, learn your strengths, your weaknesses, your vulnerabilities. You know, you have to learn how to manage yourself first and foremost. How many of us know that, listen, courtesy and respect is leadership? We don't talk about that too much. Courtesy is leadership. Respect is leadership. Learning how to, as in, love is leadership. I'll say something. I'll tell you something. As in, time is never our friend. You know, I believe every one of you've heard of Jack Ma. You've heard of Jack Ma, who is the retired chairman and CEO of Alibaba. You know, started Alibaba and all that. Interesting story. And so he was talking about recently. I think that was sometime much earlier in the year. They had a meeting in New York, and they was talking about the progression from IQ. We've always focused on IQ, you know, and all that. He now said things have moved from IQ to EQ, which is emotional intelligence, you know. And he said right now, as in, it's not just, you see, IQ, people used to focus on just the intelligence of the individual. Oh, somebody has got intelligence and all that. But after a while, people realize that you can have intelligence, you can have IQ, but that does not mean that you are going to be a problem solver, because your personal relationship, what determines the success of an organization, it goes beyond the technical skills. It goes beyond the IQ. You must have emotional intelligence. You have to learn how to relate with one another. You have to learn how to recognize, if you are a CEO and you are not aware, you come into a space, you can't see your staff and be able to say, there's something wrong. There's something wrong here. What's going on? Okay, the organization, you can't harness the organization, and then you're going to make a whole lot of challenges. For example, in an organization, you have your SOPs in the organization, and which managers usually will use to manage as, okay, is in the staff manual, is in the SOP and all that. But how many of you know that SOP doesn't cover the fact that a lady who has been engaged, she was duted on Sunday and she needs to appear in the office on Monday. Her boyfriend dumped her on Sunday and she needs to appear in the office on Monday. SOP doesn't cover that one. So it takes someone who has emotional intelligence to be able to recognize, you see her first. You know, that is why the first capacity we talk about in leadership, as in somebody who, in leading well, you have to build that capacity. You have to be able to diagnose effectively. You come into an environment and you know something is wrong somewhere. Unfortunately, we have authority figures in Nigeria. They don't even know the problems that they are dealing with. But let's talk, as in, because you see, you have fathers, you have mothers in the home. They can't even see their sons and their daughters and just recognize that something is wrong. You know? So Jack Ma was saying that, you see, we moved from IQ to EQ. But he now said, what we need now in our world, you know, he said it is LQ. What is LQ? He said love quotient. So to answer your question in a whole lot of ways, Discovering your personal leadership begins from you. You have to be able to manage self. You have to be able to build capacity. You have to be able to understand your strengths, your weaknesses, your vulnerabilities. Because when you don't know you, you will not be able to manage you. So leadership begins from you, and then you can mobilize others. So that's a good place to start. And the good thing is that it's a skill. It's a practice. And the more you engage in building self and building capacity, you are able to improve your leadership bandwidth and capacity to exercise leadership. Okay, I have exceeded my time boundary by 1 minute. And I can see that Uncle James Abiona is looking at me. So, I want to be guided. So thank you, Rena, for your question, and I hope that helped, because you see, and I said something. I hope you caught that, as in the concept of the leadership we want to communicate. The concept of leaders are born. It has become bankrupt. It's an idea and a concept that we've moved away from that. Leadership can be learned. You can teach it, you can learn it, you can build it. It's a skill. You can improve on it. You can learn leadership. You can improve your leadership bandwidth. You can sharpen your leadership edge. All right? You can sharpen it. You can get better at it. There are some times where you can exercise effective leadership in a particular situation, and you can do poorly in another situation. That is why we say it's an activity. It's a verb. It's not a noun. It's not a person. It's what you do. It's the actions that you take. Okay. So maybe we can take one more question before I yield back. Okay. What I would do is that in my next session, you see, one of the reasons why we still, even in death, for example, we still consider the great Nelson Mandela as Africa's biggest hero. And I'm going to play a video for us in the next session when I have the opportunity, if I do have the opportunity, for you to see. Is a 2 minutes video. We will use it to differentiate between authority and leadership. You will see why till date, even in death, he is still Africa's most celebrated hero, because he exercised and he practiced leadership.
Can you please give it to us now? We don't mind, sir. Please.
Okay.
Give it to us. We don't mind.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
All right. Let me share. Let me put up that video, and okay. So whilst I'm trying to do that, anybody can just go ahead and make comments and ask a question whilst we're trying to do that. Put the video up.
On the chat.
Somebody said, please, I need more explanation on the aspect you said in leading. You don't need followers. Dr. Abebe, can you help us answer this question? Someone said, please, I need more explanation on the aspect you said in leading. You don't need followers.
Yes.
Dr. Edbert, someone said, please, I need more explanation on the aspect you said in leading. You don't need followers. Can you answer the question while we wait for the video? Hello, sir. Can you hear me?
Unmute yourself, sir.
Yeah.
Sir,
Hello?
unmute yourself. We can't hear you.
Yeah. Yeah. I said, Dr. Edbert.
Hello? Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yes, we can hear you.
Oh, sorry about that. I didn't know I was muted. Sorry about that. Okay, go ahead. I can hear you now. Okay, so what was the question? Okay. Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you, sir.
Okay. Okay, now when I said the aspect of, I said leadership, all right? Now, most people have the concept that leadership is defined by the people who follow you, all right? But I was making the point that leadership begins with you. Leadership, true leadership creates leadership, not necessarily followers. Now, what do I mean by that? Okay. There is no point saying I have 10,000 followers, people who are following me. And so because of that, the fact that you have 10,000 followers does not mean you are leading. How many of you have heard of Jim Jones before? Jim Jones. Jim Jones was an American preacher who moved to Guyana. And then in one day, you can Google it, in one day, himself and 1,200 people took cyanide and they all died in one day. Now, the question is, was Jim Jones, was he exercising leadership? Was he leading those people effectively? The concept of leadership that I need us to, that I'm suggesting to us is leadership is mobilizing people to solve problems for the common good of a community or humanity. Are you with me? Leadership is the activity of mobilizing people. It's not just, oh, we have people who are following. No. How societies are built, how societies as in social movements and societies, how they ensure, look at first world societies, how they are built is the fact that somebody is exercising leadership. It inspires another to begin to exercise leadership. So you are doing stuff, You inspire A, B inspire C. As in everybody, that is leadership. Not just having people who blind followership. And that we see a lot of times. People just follow for the sake of following. No, that's not leadership. But does that mean that you don't need followers to get the job done? No. But the fact that you have people following you does not necessarily mean that you are leading well. In certain cases, it can mean you are leading well. In some other cases, it doesn't necessarily mean that you are leading well. That is why I made the statement that leadership creates leadership. It's a chain reaction, not just followers, not just people who follow. Does that make sense? Okay. I think I'm almost there now to, all right, let me quickly, let me share. Let me share. Okay, just. Okay, let me see, let me do something here. Something is not syncing properly. So, well, let me just try again. If it doesn't work, then I would, okay, just let me know. Okay, let me know if you can hear the sound. If you can hear the sound, just let me know. Put it in the. Can you hear the sound?
That's it.
Good morning.
Yes,
Can you see picture?
yes, we can.
Okay.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, everyone. Brenda, you've had your hair done. I like it.
Thank you, Mediva. Yeah, we need to talk about your cabinet appointment.
Okay. I paused it. Hello. I'm sure you all can hear me. I have paused it for a minute. Now, let me explain the background so that we can all discuss. Okay. Hello. Now let me explain the background of this. Now this was in 1994. Okay, this was depicted in a movie. This is day one of President Mandela in the office. Day one, he arrived at the office after being elected as the first Black president of the Rainbow Nation, South Africa. So he arrives in the office. Now, he's the president and commander-in-chief of the Rainbow Nation, Republic of South Africa. He has authority, okay? But I want you to see how he acted with his authority, because I said to you that there's a difference between authority and leadership. You can have authority, but how you use it, that's where your leadership starts from. So I want to show you all how Mandela on day one used his authority. And I would like you to be able to speak back, say back to me what you see in that video clip as representing leadership. So with that background, I want us to go ahead and continue with just a minute.
And ministers.
Give me one moment.
Listen to
After you, Comrade President.
Thank you, sir.
Let me start from the beginning.
That's it.
Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning, everyone. Ah, Brenda, you've had your hair done. I like it.
Thank you, Mediba. Yeah, we need to talk about your cabinet appointments and ministers.
Give me one moment, please.
Yes, Mediba.
After you, Comrade President.
Thank you, sir.
Office of the President, good morning.
Brenda, please assemble all the staff for me. All those who haven't already left.
Right now, all of them?
Yes, please.
Yes, Mediba. Ladies and gentlemen, if you would like to follow me, please. The President would like to speak with you.
Here he comes. Yeah. He wants the satisfaction of firing us himself.
I'd like you to stay out here.
Yes, but Mediba...
I cannot talk to them hiding behind men with guns. Goimora, Alma. Good morning. How are you this morning?
Fine.
It's good to see you. Thank you for coming on such short notice. Some of you may know who I am. I could not help noticing the empty offices as I came to work this morning, and all of the packing boxes. Now, of course, if you want to leave, that is your right. And if you feel in your heart that you cannot work with your new government, then it is better that you do leave right away. But if you are packing up because you fear that your language or the color of your skin or who you worked for before disqualifies you from working here, I am here to tell you, have no such fear. What is Rabbi is Rabbi. The past is the past. We look to the future now. We need your help. We want your help. If you would like to stay, you would be doing your country a great service. All I ask is that you do your work to the best of your abilities and with good heart. I promise to do the same. If we can manage that, our country will be a shining light in the world.
Okay?
Dr. Abebe,
Yeah.
Dr. Abebe, we have finished with this video. I don't know if I can recover. Dr. Abebe, you have finished with this video.
I hear you, sir.
I can recover.
It's well. So I just.
Doctor, this is the country of about 100 million, maybe 60 million. We are 200 million here. So when are we going to have such an opportunity to have such a man like this million? Because this is an opposite of what we're experiencing now in Nigeria. Direct opposite.
Very true. Very true. That is why we are big on. We need individuals who can. We have to teach leadership because we have to de-emphasize position, power. I mean, Uncle James. Some people are ready to kill for authority. How can somebody be dying to contest as a member of the Federal House of Representatives? Too much focus, and that is the same value system that we are putting before our youths, that the focus should be authority, power, title. So you look at a man who gets to, with such huge, as in capital, social capital, national capital. I mean, he's the number one authority. He gets to office on day one. Look at his activities. Here, I mean, you know the normal thing. He's the first person who greets his secretary. Oh, Brenda, you've made your hair. Good morning. He's greeting everybody. He's the one greeting, not waiting to be greeted. I mean, he's aware of his environment. He can see that, oh, people are in fear. They are packing their boxes. They want to, you know. I mean, if Mr. President would observe just a bit of these skills, you won't, I mean, when he came into power in 2015, you won't talk about the 95% and the 5%, if you know what I'm talking about. Because you understand that with your authority as the number one citizen, you have a responsibility to bring everyone together, whether they voted for you or not. That you have authority, but what you do with it is where your leadership starts from. That also you are there to serve them. And the example that you serve is very key. It's important. And these are some of the values I'm hoping that we can leave with our young ones so that they understand that leadership is about service. When you have authority, it is to use it to serve people. Is it to use it to, I mean, it's a John Maxwell will say that somebody said, oh, he said, oh, I work for you. I said, no. I don't own slaves. You work with me. I serve you. You serve me. And that is the whole essence of leadership, servant leadership, of having authority. And if a school, like I was saying to the head of the Student Representative Council in ICS, who had just been elected when we went there to talk about the practice of leadership. And I said to him, I said, you are members of your team. Now, more persons have authorized you to head this council, but I hope you know that your leadership will be judged by how much you serve them, how much you mobilize people to solve problems, how you are able to inspire a collective purpose, how you are able to bring them together. Not everybody will agree with you, but how you are able to listen. Learning to listen is part of leadership, okay? Learning to, I mean, hear from the other factions. Learn from people who don't agree or see eye to eye with you. So not to take too much time, I would just allow for the remaining 6 minutes if there are any further comments and all that, and then we'll look forward to the next session. Am I live?
Yes, you are. I don't know if it's okay.
Yes, you.
Okay.
To say something.
You are live.
Thank you very much for that again.
Okay.
And it just made me smile seeing that clip as well, because I remember watching that movie a very long time ago. In fact, I'm going to rewatch it again. And that little clip, I think watching it myself just now is very moving and very powerful in terms of the very strong messages we can get from them. Sorry, I can't put my video on now because I'm not appropriately dressed. Forgive me, please. Yeah, so if I can carry on, I think just watching it, there's a few but very powerful messages I picked up from there. And I think you touched on a couple of them in terms of the very little things, but very important things. It's the courtesy he displayed coming into the office the very first day, noticing everybody, acknowledging everybody, not coming in riding on a high horse and expecting everybody to be greeting you and acknowledging you first because you think you're the leader, you're the boss. But he came in acknowledging and showing good example, which is one of the very, very important quality of a leader. It's showing example by serving people, by acknowledging people. Yeah. So he did that. Yeah. And then he was able, and you touched on another aspect of leadership. He's looking all around. It's not about himself. It's about the other people. So he's seeing how they're behaving. He's seeing that they're packing their things. He's seeing that they're rushing out, and he's taking action. And that's a good quality of a leader. A leader doesn't run away from challenges or obstacles. He faces them head on, he or she. faces them head on. So as soon as he identified that, oh, there's potentially an issue here, he didn't wait, he immediately called for a meeting, which is very important. But above all, I think the main thing that I picked up from this little clip is his vision. He immediately, I think at the end of the clip, he stated his vision. Because I think with leadership, I think where we really get it wrong is because people think that when they are leaders, everybody should just follow them. But that's not how it works out. That's not how it should work. What people should follow is your vision and not you as a leader, as the person being the leader. It's what your vision carries. That's what they should key into and follow. And straight away, you could see that at the end of that clip, he totally spoke to them, telling them what his vision is in very few words. And he didn't just talk to them about the vision, expecting them to just follow. He spoke to them in terms of what he intends to do in terms of serving them, in the process of achieving or fulfilling or actualizing that vision. So I think that's really, really powerful. And it goes to what you said as well, too, in terms of being a leader. It doesn't require you to have followers first. It starts from you. It starts from these little skills, or we call them little, but they're powerful. But this, knowledge and these little things that we can display in our everyday lives. Leadership is, and I'm grateful that you spoke about it, not being as a title, but being in a verb form, in terms of just people watching you and seeing the good things that you do and how you display some very powerful characteristics. You inspire them and they become better. That's what leadership is, because you're taking them from where they are at the moment to a better version of themselves. So thank you for that video. That's what I have to contribute. Thank you very much, and God bless.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I'm happy that you got quite a bit from it. Your summary is much insightful. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. So, any other final comments before I yield the floor?
Yeah, Queen Donnie, the last one before we shut down.
Who's that?
Yeah, we have Queen Donnie raising her hands.
Okay. Okay, can she go ahead?
We're waiting for you, Queen Donnie. She's not coming.
Hello?
Hello, Queen Donnie.
Yes, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Yes, I just have a little thing to say. I really appreciate being a part of this program, and I'm really thankful to the organizers for taking their time to impact us with so much knowledge. And I really appreciate that little clip that I just got to watch now. In addition to what the last speaker said, the last person said, the person that commented on it said, I just want to say what I really got from it, in addition, is his ability to realize that people have choices. He wasn't forcing anybody to do anything. He just gave them the ability to make their choice. I really, really, really find that inspiring, and thank you for sharing.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Queen. I mean, you've made a very important point. When you are leading people, you have to understand that your duty is to inspire them and not to force them. They have a choice whether to go with you or not. And part of the practice or the challenge or the work of leadership is to be able to inspire a collective purpose. Because there will always be factions. There are people who think differently. And part of why it's important to appreciate the factions is that you don't know everything. You will always have blind sides. So, but when you are able to listen and you are able to consider other factions, you also will learn. And that is part of the work of leadership. You won't learn from the opposition. You learn from the man who is opposing you. Why is he opposing you? You learn from your allies. You learn from your opposition. You learn from your stakeholders. You learn from your partners. These are some of the things we'll be looking at in possibly we might be able to touch on them in a subsequent session and all that. You know, it's listening is leadership. Learning to listen is a leadership activity. It's an important value of leadership. For example, is what we say to fathers in the home. You can't lead well in your home if you don't learn to listen. A CEO in a company, you can't lead well if you don't learn to listen because you are a limited resource. There are some things you will catch by just listening to other people talk. You would just, by observing, you would just, but when you don't listen, and even there is a principle, there's even a biblical principle that talks about as a listen twice as much as you talk. You know, be slow to speak, quick to hear, and slow to wrath. It's also a leadership principle. Thank you so much. I'm happy that it's been valuable to every one of you. Uncle James, thank you for the opportunity to talk to your team. I appreciate so much. I yield back to you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Edbert Abebe. I'm so grateful. And we thank God for that opportunity. And I'm so grateful. Thank you so much. So we thank every one of you for coming around. And we have just less than 30 minutes now to 3 o'clock, but I'm not going to stretch us beyond that. Everyone who have attended, there's certain announcement I want to make now for all the attendees, online and offline, is that please help us to write your name to the platform, send the name to the platform as you want your name on the certificates. Your certificates, please come as later.
Yes, just continue.
Continue, okay. Later or join up. Yeah. So I want you to please everyone watching right now. I want you to please we want you to please write your name as you want your name on the certificate, send it to the platform. Send it to the platform, and we will send your certificate to you wherever you are through the leadership of the buyer. Thank you very much for attending this emergency youth conference organized by the buyer. I want to thank you for your time. I thank you you'll be hearing more from us. We are crossing to Brotherhood right away. If you can find a way to get to Brotherhood tonight, we'll build. If not, we'll cross tomorrow morning to Brotherhood. So on Monday, we'll meet you at the conference. We'll be starting the Brotherhood edition. But please note, for those of us who have attended, except you meet the course, we have let us you don't need to attend you don't need to attend any question to ask. Please can just ask because we're going to shut down now and begin to find our way to. Is there any question anyone wants to ask? Your certificate is coming. Once you have the phone or the certificate, you go together and then you tell you. And then there are other benefits that will be unfolded to us. If there is none, I want to say a big thank you on behalf of the leadership. Of the Brotherhood, like I went with the chairman, and I say a big thank you to every one of you. I did a lot of those to do together. Please stay connected and stay motivated. Thank you very much on behalf of myself and my team. I want to say a big thank you to you and see you at the top. God bless you. All right.